This is the ring, the cage, and the stage, and today we are very, very excited to have Double J, Jeff Jarrett, the legendary wrestler, WWE Hall of Famer. How has your new year been so far, Jeff?
It's been fantastic. 2018 was, a bit of a whirlwind. It started, took off like a bang and really never slowed down, and just a lot going on in my world. But got home 2 days before Christmas from Germany and got to have some really good family time, quiet time. Didn't travel between Christmas and New Year's, and then kicked the New Year off and getting things cranked up. And with my partnership with Fight, I'm very excited about where things are headed, and a lot of good stuff going on, both in the wrestling business and out as well.
That's what's up. Cole, what was your first question?
I'm going to go back to the 80s a little bit. You're, of course, the son of a regional promoter. So my question is, as the son of a regional promoter, what were your thoughts on Vince McMahon's expansion in the 80s? And at that time, did you ever see yourself working for Vince or what?
Well, I mean, obviously, the first half of the 80s, I'll say, I was in junior high and high school. So I got, quite frankly, I got to look at it from several different perspectives, and pretty, very thankful because, I looked at it, one, as the family business that in the early 80s, it was literally red hot, not just the territory here in the Tennessee area, but all across the country. There was record business going on in Florida and the Carolinas and Texas and just everywhere, Oregon, up north. Just, it was really blowing and going. But, 83 was the first WrestleMania, and obviously the Rock and Wrestling, and then by 85 and 86, and you just sort of see all that just the transition in the business, especially in those times, it went from the Saturday morning, Saturday evening, local affiliate business model, and then it transformed into the early stages of the, in those days it was closed circuit that's morphed into the pay-per-view world. And so, it was during the time, the first half was the regional business, and then the second half of the 80s is when obviously Hulkamania started to run wild, but that's when the Turner folks got into the game, when they basically took the remnants of the Kansas City and the Louisiana and the Florida and obviously the Carolina territory, and WCW was born. So it was a really, really an enormous transition period, but that's on the business side. And from a fan side, I got to watch sitting on my couch, watch the David Letterman episode with Lawler, and got to watch that from multiple perspectives. But then obviously it goes with Hulkamania and everything that went with that. Mr. T, Piper, Cyndi Lauper, just all that kind of stuff. And then, you had guys like the Ultimate Warrior and Steen, who had worked in my father's promotion, and then next thing you know, they're both world champions in their respective organizations. So a lot of transition. And did I ever? I think the second part was, did I ever expect to work for Vince? I can't sit here and honestly say that at those times I thought, yeah, I'm going to the WWF. No, it was my big dream was, can I just wrestle? Can I work for the family promotion doing anything? So that was sort of my sights in the 80s.
Right. Well, that was in the 80s. I want to fast forward now for a little bit. Before you were informed of your WWE Hall of Fame induction, when was the last time that you had a meaningful conversation with WWE about a potential appearance? And would you be open to wrestling a match there now if you thought the idea and the opponent was cool?
Well, and as to reflect back on a little bit of 2018, multiple times I would go into, whether it's a phone call or a business meeting or whatever, however you have it, and I would say, no, dealing with AAA, and I'm dealing with music promoters and Comic-Con promoters. And, 2018 was the first time that I wasn't since 1993, since October of '93. That's when I signed my first WWF deal. That was the first time in 2018 that I wasn't under, whether it was ownership of a company, production holding deal, a talent holding deal, equity stake, any of that. So when you say the first conversation, to have a meaningful conversation about an appearance, 2018 literally was the very first time, and it was it was the first Sunday of the year. So when I reflect back on it, it was obviously remarkable and very humbling. But no, I haven't had I couldn't have a conversation. Probably is the best way to answer that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Cole, go ahead.
Okay. With the increasing popularity of promotions like New Japan Pro Wrestling, the rise of AWE, and the revitalization of NWA, a lot of other stuff, do you think it's possible that we could see a true challenger to the WWE in the next few years?
I think the challenger that probably you guys, and it goes without saying you guys are a little bit younger than me, but when you say challenger, certainly my brain, because I've got a past experience that going back to how this conversation that us guys are having, it was the territory days, and nobody really challenged anybody back in those days because it was an alliance, a loosely fitting handshake relationship between the 22 North American territories. Well, obviously Vince came along and basically we know exactly his mentality. It was a national expansion, and I always use that word. It was an expansion. He took his regional territory that his father had and he expanded. So that certainly was a challenge to each regional promotion, and we know the track record that WCW was born out of Vince's decision. So we rode along. We had the Monday Night Wars, and then we started TNA up on a little Wednesday night pay-per-view and grew to a 2-hour primetime special. But no matter how you slice and dice it, at all times when we were doing numbers at TNA, WWE was at least 9 to 10 times bigger in every facet. They were publicly traded. Fast forward now to 2019, and you look at the landscape, and you have New Japan entering the market. You have AAA entering the market in a much bigger way, and then obviously AEW has come on the scene, and that goes without saying. You have MLW, you have Impact, you have Ring of Honor. So you have all of this. So when you say a challenge for market share, it goes without saying, WWE still, with all of the chatter going on, they're a $1 billion organization with 3 hours on Monday night on USA, soon to be on network TV, so 5 hours of live content a week. That's when you look at it from that perspective, and it's a $1 billion organization. No, there are no challenge financially,
yes, sir.
Or market share, but the world's a big place, and with our best friend, the social media digital age, wrestling from all over the world, as I stated, Mexico, Japan, obviously the two biggest promotions. So there is a diverse audience, but challenge, it really depends on how you define that. So I know that was a long way to say that, the word challenge in the 90s is completely different than it is 2019.
Yes, sir. I completely understand what you're saying.
In your opinion, is pro wrestling an art to you?
Without question. It is not true competition, and in case you didn't know that, Chandler, I hope that I'm not spoiling it, that no. The Easter Bunny doesn't exist, and Santa Claus doesn't either. But no, it without question, it is. It is an art form because it is in what we do. Acting's an art form. For the lack of a better word, the greatest Olympian gymnast, that's art. Someone judges that. A score of 10 is completely subjective. 100% subjective. Yes, it is a sport, but it's not a score.
Not anybody can do it.
Well, no, absolutely. So when you say is it an art, I think that is a simple no-brainer. It's not an art for everyone, and not everybody cares for it. Only the masses watch professional wrestling.
Right. Cole, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually have a sort of a follow-up to that one. When I had first thought of that question about whether or not you thought wrestling was an art, it was right after, I don't know if you saw the video, but there was a video on YouTube about 2 weeks ago of a female professional wrestler that did this certain spot. She pulled a women's... Do you know what I'm talking about at all?
Let me help you out, bud. It is a women's, I think, I didn't see it, but I heard a female napkin.
That's exactly what I was looking for, yes, sir.
But go ahead.
I guess my question, a lot of people that were defending and were saying that, you know, wrestling is art and art is subjective. So that was kind of where all that was coming from. So I guess, what was your opinion of that? Did you have one? Or
well, here's the deal. If you guys probably don't have kids, but if you're a kindergartner, goes to school and comes home with finger paint art, and it's a big blob of paint on the page, you tell your 4 or 5-year-old kid that is a beautiful painting and it's finger art. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Is that for everyone what you discussed? Absolutely not. But for someone out there, that was part art. So I can't sit here and say that is an art. That art just isn't my cup of tea and millions others.
Right on.
That's probably the best response that anybody has had to, you know, I've just been reading people, you know, commenting on that spot, and you probably have had the best response to it. That's it.
Mr. Jarrett, we only got 2 more questions for you. One of them is, a lot of pro wrestling fans are seemingly anti-WWE these days. Do you think WWE could have catered to a more diverse audience over the years and avoided this current rise in potential competition, such as Cody Rhodes and company starting this new promotion, AEW?
So what is your exact question? I want to make sure that I answer your question.
Well, Cole, you wrote that one, so you put it in your own words.
I guess the way that you kind of answered it earlier, but the question basically was, do you think that had WWE catered to a bigger audience over the last, say, 15 or 20 years, that they could have kept promotions like New Japan from becoming so popular in the U.S., or do you think that was inevitable?
It's inevitable because, you know, no matter how good you may think Coca-Cola is, somebody's always going to make Pepsi and RC Cola and Sam's version of cola because someone always likes the alternative. In my opinion, that's just my complete humble opinion.
Yes, sir.
But no, it's inevitable because I love professional wrestling. I have an affinity for Lucha Libre and the 4-back AAA, but I've learned to love that. I didn't grow up on that. I like Japanese wrestling, and there are certain competitive matches in Japanese wrestling that are second to none. But I also know that there is a definite, you know, it will never be as wide stream or mainstream or such wide appeal as the WWE brand of professional wrestling. It's just how it is. So I think it's, without question, inevitable. But everybody likes a little something different here and there.
Yeah, and it seems like with social media, there's just so many, you can get everything out there. So,
well,
yeah.
Speaking of social media, and this is my last question for you, Double J. You often tweet out quotes on Twitter, on your Twitter account. If you had to choose one specific quote as your favorite or the most important to you, what would it be?
Oh man, there's no way for me to pick one. I like quotes. You know, to me, I do it as much for myself as anybody else, but I enjoy it. And it's on a, you know, obviously, if you do follow it, I change on a daily basis. They can be motivational, inspirational. They can be on work ethic, persistence, patience, all kinds of different topics, and it just sort of depends. But you know, I've always liked quotes. My dad liked quotes, and it's just something that quotes and scriptures inspire me.
Right on. Well, Double J, that's all we have for you today. We really, really appreciate it. I know you've been really busy lately. Everybody listening, this is The Ring, The Cage, and The Stage. I'm your host, Chandler Sorrells, and Cole Henry. And today we had none other than Jeff Jarrett. We want to say thank you very much for giving us your time today.
Sure, guys. Thanks. Stay in touch, and I'd love to come back at some point.
All right.